And I did these slides here together with my colleagues, and it's Morten and Nele. Morten will also present a few of the slides. And we are, as you know, from the Department of Agroecology here at Aarhus University. And therefore, of course, we see a lot of parallels between the developments within agroecology and agricultural management practices, agroecological management practices. That is also core for the European Union and many calls. And then the roles of the nature-based solutions that we work on in this project. Also for promotion of more sustainable types of agriculture, circular agriculture, linking different types of agriculture, but also to the cities, as you mentioned there. And therefore, we decided that it would be nice for us here to see how we link what we have of experiences already from developments in agroecology and agricultural management to nature-based solutions. And for that, we draw on also some previous projects and centers that we have here in Denmark. And Nele, for instance, is connected to as a PhD student to this Center of Sustainscapes. Thank you for shifting. That's fine. And there she did also for the PhD, she did work also on some previous literature review, both within agroecology and nature-based solutions, and agriculture and nature-based solutions. So therefore, I think this can contribute into this and also to the other projects and PhD projects and work packages that we have in Transformum. And I think this is from the work of you, Nele. I got it from Morten, but this is just the keywords we have here. If you search nature-based solutions in all these reviewed literature databases, and as you see, there is many keywords that's popping up with different things: agriculture, nature-based solutions, ecosystem services, and so on. But not so much until now agroecology. And I think this will come up because Morten, based on the work we did together with Nele there, also on the literature review that we did, see that it is actually booming now with the literature that is published around nature-based solutions. So I think we are in a really, really good situation with this project that we can contribute to this clearance and this publication, and also this contribution from research into implementation of nature-based solutions for sustainable agricultural systems. And I just put in one of the presentations here. Yeah, I will come back there now. One of the presentations about that there was this agroecology and nature-based solutions publications popping up just this year, so it will come up. And therefore, and this is then the slide I'm going to now about agroecology. What is agroecology? Because agroecology actually has many, many, many things in parallel with nature-based solutions, especially as in Transformum, where we link nature-based solutions to agriculture and development of agricultural systems. So it's about understanding the development of sustainable ecosystems and the dimensions of sustainability. This was also put forward in our discussions in Hohenheim. Then it's a whole system approach, and therefore thank you, Andrea, for linking us to all these things, because this is not trivial to do transdisciplinary and interdisciplinary studies, but we need to do that to understand how we can use nature-based solutions, because they go across systems, across landscapes. That's how nature is. And thereby we need a link the different disciplines that we also have represented nicely in this consortium. So actually we do all that we recommend from agroecology, that when we teach agroecology, this is from the textbook of Fleesman here, that we teach in also university, that's it. And also linking the components that we did some reviews of agroecology some years ago. This is the paper down there in the end about the interactions between these components of the agricultural food system. So next slide, please. Where the window here, this is from this paper, that the window of agroecology include all these components that is needed to promote this sustainable transition of the agricultural systems towards more nature-based solutions. And in agroecology, in this paper, there is a history of agroecology that in the beginning, maybe you start focusing very much on studying single plants or animals, butterflies or something. And then it's kind of zooming out, so that then you looked at whole ecosystems, that you did that, and that's only in the 1970s, 1980s. Whereas today, the view is more on the whole window of agroecology, also what can it offer for society. And actually the same development is now happening also in nature-based solutions. from these early definitions, that's very much from a nature and ecology perspective, coming now to the European definitions that we discussed, very much linking it to sustainability and also the needs for society for transition. And this is not, this is ongoing. So I think for our project here, we have really a good chance to contribute to that so we can make it useful for the transition. And it's not easy, and we need to be clear and give some use examples. You can take the next slide. So therefore, we need a link to what is nature-based solutions, and you one click more. And Andrea already used this, that there is this difference between the European Union definition here that is very much on sustainable development, the dimensions of sustainable development, and also make it more resilient. Because I think with this world of shocks, not only wars, but also climate change and markets changing and the relations and so on, we need a big build resilient systems. And I think we need to add a dimension to the sustainability, economic, social, and environmental sustainability, also technological solutions somehow. And this is a big discussion. We'll come back to that. How are they really nature-based solutions? Maybe they are not, but somehow they are prerequisites or contributing to making more nature-based solutions possible. They can also be barriers, and this is something we need to link to. And this is adding to the previous definitions, both from the IUCN and UN, that is very much linked to the biodiversity and protection of nature. That is still important. So we need both. In Denmark, there are two agendas of biodiversity and climate. There's also in the EU, we need both. We cannot save the nature and don't care about the environmental climate change and things like that. So this is where the challenge is. So that's the next slide. The challenge is kind of this. You also showed that, Andrea. How do we link this common understanding now in the IUCN to the specific challenges that we have in agricultural systems with this transformation of sustainable nutrient supply and management? Because there is a long way from this overall picture and the good intentions and word for nature, and then balancing that with the needs for agriculture. We see that in Europe, for sure. This is also on top of the agenda in China. So therefore, it's relevant. Next slide. And therefore, Morten and I and colleagues, we are working on this now. How can we disentangle these components of what is the nature-based solutions that we are now presenting in this project? This will be the key topics of the seminar series here over these examples of nature-based solutions. What are these that we study, and how do they relate to this socio-ecological system, these transdisciplinary research topics that Andrea presented? And how do they link to the different types of technologies, that is prerequisites or drivers? This could be these refineries in Denmark. This could be these enabling of circular systems that we're talking about, thereby linking it to the circular agriculture. And how do we actually integrate that for decision making? So that is the key. That is not just a new decision support system that's a bit different than another topic. It's a new type. It's also a transition of decision support systems. So it's new types that can cover these things, so that it's maybe not decision support only for single actors, single farmers, single economic entities. It's for whole entities that's covered by the nature. So it's whole landscapes. It's groups of farmers. It's groups, parts of society. And linking that, and that's what we see, and we need to look at from above, even with the satellite and remote sensing and so on, so that we can use these overall knowledge to support and drive the implementation of the nature-based solutions. And thereby linking, and this is the next slide, thereby linking this research, the observations we have in these single plots, and we will see that from the very top shelf of Europe here and China, from Rotterdam and from Hungary, and all these examples in the Netherlands and Denmark here, and all these partners input here, that this can then give some suggestions to new nature-based solutions. How can this then be fed into and implemented in the real world in this, you can say, interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary context that you sit in? And thereby we can not only make new solutions and exemplify that and build that into the models and decisions process, we can also come up with new questions to society. How do we deal with this? And I think, as mentioned, now I will hand over to you, Morten. The next slide, a few words. Next slide is, I think, that we are in a really, really steep development. Like in agroecology, we had that steep development in the year 2000 until today. So many practices and so on. We are now implementing with these living labs and so on all over Europe. But with the nature-based solutions, I think we only started in 2008. This is the development, some of the publications here. And today we also integrate agroecology and agriculture in this. And I think we are at the right moment, right time for this project. The next 4 years will be decisive for how we can benefit from this. And based on this development, Morten, you reviewed about the literature together with Nele and reflect a bit about that. It's a starting point for the rest of the seminar, Morten. So I leave it to you now.
Okay, thank you, Tommy. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, super. Yeah, so this these slides and these ideas of what we would present here for this seminar is driven by some curiosity and also interest in, okay, how is, because the topic and definitions of nature-based solutions is also something we discuss a lot in our group and in our section, because we have people from biology, we have people from agriculture, we have people from geography, and many definitions. And thank you, Andrea, for providing those first definitions. And that also drove me into, okay, how is agriculture and nature-based solutions being defined and being discussed in the literature, or also in the organizations? And then I had a chat with Nele, who is doing a PhD on nature-based solutions and agriculture, more in a historical perspective. And we said, okay, we need to do some kind of review or overview of this. Also because we have this task 1.1 for the Hungarian team, that they need these definitions. So I thought maybe we can do two things in at the same time. So we started up trying to do some review, and it's just done this week. So it's not a systematic review or anything. It's just some ideas, and Nele has put a lot of effort into this. So thank you, Nele. She's also listening. Yeah. But first I can see that, as Tommy showed, that timeline with the nature-based solution concept, it was derived from this, as Andrea also said, coming from this conservation or biology and biodiversity perspective, and then moving into other organizations and agendas. Next slide. And going into, if we look at only, and of course there is a lot of it on urban and cities, we won't talk about that here, but if we look at agriculture and rural, a lot of the publication has focused around climate change, as I can see. And here is three really important reports. I think one from the German Ecological Institute, one from the EEA, the European Environmental Assessment Agency, and one from the British Ecological Society, where there's discussions about where agriculture and nature-based solutions are framed, but with a focus on climate change. Next slide. And then, of course, we found also the reports from FAO, as we also used in this application, and where the focus is more not just on climate change, but more also on agriculture and farming, and how this concept could be used to do more sustainability, right? But then I thought, okay, what about nutrient management? This is our topic. What is there? What is out there on nutrient management? So we did the next slide, please. We did a short or a quick search string in Web of Science and Scopus, and based on these keywords, nature-based solution, NBS, and farm, and so on, and tried to look up some of the synonyms for nutrient management, right? And found 1,363 papers that we could use in our first inquiry. Of course, we have not made any exclusions yet. There is also, of course, then included something about urban agriculture and stuff like that we would need to exclude. And but I think we can perhaps use this first thing as a for example, to use it for work package 1, right? For task 1.1 and 1.2, we could ask research question of what types of nature-based solutions are then present in the literature when we talk about nutrient management. what type of analysis, going back to the presentation from Andrea, what type of, is it interdisciplinary, is it multidisciplinary, what is actually studied, how are these nature-based solutions studied, what type of cases. I think we could develop some nice papers doing a review on this. If you go to next slide, you can see here, we are really, as Tommy said, in a key momentum. So the publications on nature-based solutions and related to nutrient management is really exploding since 2015, right? You can see we included 2023, so of course that will then go up again. But there really is a lot of work being done at the moment, and a lot of papers coming out that has a focus on nutrient management, nitrogen management, phosphorus management, and so on, related to nature-based solutions. So I think we are in a good shape to look at it. And also, because I think, as I will show later, that the focus on many of these papers are on either a landscape focus, for example, only looking at wetlands, constructed wetlands, or there is a urban agriculture focus looking at green infrastructure and so on, or maybe and then there's a climate change focus. But I cannot really, okay, I haven't had time to do an analysis, but it looks like we have something to also deliver and provide to this literature. So go on, next slide. Just an interesting, most relevant affiliation is Aarhus University, and it's not us, so it must be some other people working on this, and it's probably our colleagues who works a lot on constructed wetlands and of course green infrastructure. I can see Sarah is also here. Some people working on urban areas. Next slide. But I think there's some interesting things we can, when we look at these different words being used and the different keywords used in these papers, that of course a lot of the papers are related to water quality, nitrogen, eutrophication, nutrients, and phosphorus. So going into now, but there is also a lot of things that are, as I said, in other areas, wastewater treatment and heavy metals and so on. Next slide. So there's a lot of the scientific production coming from China, so that's great because we have a Chinese partner, so we can actually perhaps do some co-work here, and then of course also from Europe. But that's also something we can discuss. Should we have a purely European and China focus, or should we do something all over the world or whatever? That's something to discuss and exclude some criteria and so on if you do this kind of literature review. Next slide. The interesting thing is that when we look at some of these networks of what we see in the literature, as I told you, there is these clusters of networks around climate change, around urban agriculture, around nature-based solutions, and some kind of treatment in the landscape, either as a constructed wetland and then there's the wastewater part, which is then related to some kind of urban also. But there's not, so where is all the crop rotations and all the biomass and biorefinery as we are looking at? That could be something that could be interesting to look into. So where are the cases that we are looking at? It doesn't seem like many of them are present in this literature search. Next slide. And the same when we do these thematic maps based on the literature, we can see that there is some basic themes around air pollution, water pollution, nutrient and soil, and some motor themes around urban agriculture, some niche and some climate. But again, where are the studies that we could develop? That could be interesting to look into. So next slide. I'm just showing a lot of things from our initial analysis. And now, then we also looked at what is there anything other than these few papers on agroecology, and not much actually is done on the relation between nature-based solutions and agroecology. So that's also quite interesting. But there is a lot of papers on land management and landscape approaches to nature-based solutions. So if you click the next slide, especially not this one, but the next, but just clip them all in. Come here. This figure here is from Saskia Kierstad from Wageningen. They made a paper on nature-based solutions in land management, which is quite interesting. Which also, if you just click the other slides, I have some circles that goes in, so it looks like a Mickey Mouse figure. Sorry, yeah. That you can see that our cases fits well in between something about soil vegetation solutions like agricultural productivity and biomass production, but also we have organic farming as a case, and then of course the nutrient regulation down and biodiversity. So in that way there is papers out there. And then just that paper on ecological engineering looks like it fits into our project, right? Nature-based solutions for nutrient pollution control in European agricultural regions, a literature review. But if we look into it, it's only about constructed wetlands, right? And then also a little bit about buffer zones. So there is actually something we can. That's my main point here, is that just by making this initial literature search and doing some basic analysis on the literature, there is apparently not a lot of studies being done as we would like to look at. Of course, there is a lot of single things on crop rotation. There's hundreds of agronomic studies on that, but the relation to the nature-based solution concept and transdisciplinarity, I would say there is a room for us to do something very interesting thing, and also something that we can publish on. So that's my slides.